Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams, New Orleans Saints, LSU Tigers, Tulane Green Wave, and we'll touch on the New Orleans Pelicans, maybe some news on resuming their season as well. And to break it down for us, one of our favorite guests, the guy that you ask for all the time. I get the emails constantly. Mike Detillier joins us from WWL Radio and so much more. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
Mike, you're doing some stuff with Sports Illustrated now too as well,
Yeah, I signed up. The courtship was longer than the writing.
Right.
Last couple years, Kyle Mosley had approached me about doing stuff, and Sports Illustrated has branched out now, sold a company, and they were looking for regional writers. Kyle, I was like, Kyle, I don't have time to do it, and he's like, we're gonna figure that out. Just do it. So finally, we came up with something a couple months back, and we were able to make it work. And so twice a month, I write for him, and I do podcasts for them also. So it's been able to make it work, and social media today, and you're reaching a lot of different people.
There's no doubt about that.
And so I get so many calls about it and stuff. So it's been it's on my third month doing it. So it's been great.
Now for you, like me, that grew up with Sports Illustrated, how is that? I mean, again, you
different.
One thing I love that you do on social media, you see, you still have all the magazines. You pull them out. And I can remember the covers. I can remember, again, the articles that were in them. I mean, you got some great, you must have like all of them since your childhood, right?
I have every Sports Illustrated ever printed.
Ever printed?
Ever.
Wow.
Ever.
That's amazing.
So if the house goes up, Eric, you hear about a fire.
Yes.
Nothing surviving.
Yes.
With that much paper. And I probably have, I would say from early 50s into the 90s, every sport magazine.
I remember sport.
Numerous amounts of different football magazines, baseball magazines, basketball magazines. Street and Smith, I have from 1954 somewhere late 90s, 2000s.
That's incredible. I mean, I love, if you're not following Mike on Facebook, you're a friend on Facebook, every once in a while Mike will pull out one of these covers. And I mean, again, it just brings back so many memories. You know, again, I used to collect those as well coming up. Till I left the house and Mom threw them all out. But
I was fortunate.
Yeah.
Because listen, I didn't think mine would survive either. And Bobby J always says this all the time about, he said, I watched the movie Patton. And at the beginning of the movie, you see one of Patton's assistants come out, and he's got a medal. It hasn't even been officially given to him, but they putting it on him. And Colonel Bradley says something about, I think no matter what honor they would have, one of your guys would have one of those medals in the satchel. He said, Mike, every sport magazine they have, I think you could pull one out.
Right.
That you have it. So that's kind of the connection with it. But yeah, I got a ton of them. I wish I could put all of them out. Anybody who's been to my home and has seen it, I have like 2 walls of the 4.
Right.
And man, Bradley Supplies did a great job. They came up with a scenario of a hard plastic where you can just slip the Sports Illustrateds in, clap it, and just put it up on the wall.
Right.
You don't have to do any maneuvering with it. Now, you have to know what year, because if you realize that today, Sports Illustrated magazine, when we were growing up, was a bigger magazine than it is today. So they've made it smaller, so you got to know which one, because you can't put that 2010 magazine, put it to you this way, that 1966 magazine in that 2010 version. It doesn't fit, it's too big. But so he's just kind of working it out, and I've always kept it. And man, I got cards. I know that my 2 little granddaughters one day, they'll shuffle that off, when Pops ain't around anymore, and say, he didn't want that anyway, and but I have cards from late 50s all the way till today.
Baseball, basketball, football?
Baseball, basketball, football. The one I've been offered the most for. I have a box and a half of old ABA basketball cards.
Yes.
Excuse me. I have them all in there.
Some Buccaneers in there, huh?
Buccaneers in there, and from Kentucky Colonels, and you name it.
Right.
All those ABA teams. I got a box and a half. I bought from a gentleman. He was looking to get rid of it. Man, nothing in there. I don't want that. And I found a Julius Erving rookie card.
Come on.
Artis Gilmore, because Artis started there. Rick Mount, who we grew up. Him and Pete were the shooters.
Absolutely.
Rick was at Purdue, and so. Connie Hawkins, Spencer Haywood, all those guys. So I don't do a lot of hunting and fishing. I could, because where I live at, it's like Wild Kingdom, in a lot of ways.
We were talking about before the show.
In a lot of ways, but it's sort of my hobby. And I keep up with a lot of it. I have a lot of older magazines, but it's just a response I get when I post it.
Right.
I remember seeing that. I remember having that, that sort of thing, and I have probably. Man, I wish I had all of them, but I probably have 5 years of Grid Week.
Yeah, I remember.
From the early, from 71 through 76, 77, I've got those.
As a kid,
I wish I had the late 60 ones, because those are the ones that, I remember as a kid.
Yeah.
That's how you sort of learned about the Saints, reading it. Buddy wrote for them, Hap wrote for them, Wayne Mack, all those guys. They did it for Grid Week, and so, I got a ton of them.
As a kid, I can remember living Uptown Magazine in Webster Street, the convenience store around the corner. I'd get mine, it was like 25, 50 cents back then. Go in, get my Grid Week, and I collected them as well. Has anyone ever approached you about buying your collection? Because, come on.
I wouldn't sell it.
No way.
I wouldn't,
Right.
I just won't. I wouldn't at this point in my life. What reason would I have to sell it? I mean, I love seeing it in that sort of way. And I found one. I actually sent it. I do a weekly show with Ryan Fowler. They had a network of University of Alabama.
Yes.
And I found the Grid Week. Alabama, Notre Dame. It was at that time played on New Year's Eve. And it was sort of a weather game. It had been warm. We had got rain, then it got real cold that particular game. If you remember that already Alabama had been given the national title by the UPI, because they handed it even before the bowl games.
Sugar Bowl, right?
And then Sugar Bowl, and it was a night game. I don't know anybody, if you were living at that point, that didn't see that game.
Yes.
Because, Alabama, Notre Dame, squaring off, and
that was Bear Bryant Arap-Orshegan, right?
Yep, and at the end, Al Hunter, the running back kick returner, won it for Notre Dame, and Mike Riley, who was a former assistant with the Saints for one time, also was a head coach with the San Diego Chargers, Oregon State, Nebraska. He was on the sidelines. He was a defensive back for Alabama. He said, I was right behind Bear. If you remember late in the game, Alabama had Notre Dame backed up, and Tom Clements throws a pass to Robin Weber, get a first down, seals the deal, and he said Bear's only reaction was he had that rolled up piece of paper and he just slung it down. He said, I just moved because I thought he might come try to get it. So he said, I just moved out of Bear's way at that point. But And I'll never forget, Buddy told me the story that he would come and he would talk at the Touchdown Club and the New Orleans Club all the time. And he said, I was at one of them places, man, I love to go to New Orleans. I love the food. And I love the gumbo. And the lady said, Coach, you want that gumbo in a cup or a bowl? And he said, give it to me in a cup. I can't handle them bowls. Because he had lost like 4 straight bowl games into that deal. So, I mean, typical Bear to come up with it. But, And so I sent it to him, and he was like, I just can't believe you have that from that long.
That's crazy.
Into that deal. And I remember, Buddy and I talked about it all the time because he was at ABC at that time. Of the ratings that game got was so good that actually at that time ABC was on Channel 8. They replayed it again during the summer. And he said, Mike, guess what? The ratings for the rerun were almost as good as the real game itself.
Yeah, you're right.
And to think about that had been the first time those two teams had sort of squared off. And they were the 2 best teams in the country. That game changed the way they looked at doing the national championship, and they crowned you later. Not before, but before, they crowned you before the bowl game. And Alabama had been the national champs, but Notre Dame ended up winning the game and the whole deal. So
amazing. That's amazing. And I'd love to see that, all those Sports Illustrated, that collection that you have as well. Folks, want to give you a little update about what's going on with the NBA. And Brian Windhorst reported this morning that no matter what format the NBA is going to go to when they resume the season, the cutoff line will be at the New Orleans Pelicans. The NBA wants Zion Williamson in the playoffs. It's not clear again whether they're going to scrap the rest of the regular season, or they're going to go directly to some type of a tournament play, whether it's going to be an expanded playoff, or they're going to go with maybe 20 to 24 teams that will be involved, maybe a soccer type, pool type format. But the NBA wants Zion Williamson in the playoffs, so that's great for the Pels. Now again, Commissioner Silver met with the GMs today of all the NBA clubs. Tomorrow, he meets with the Board of Governors. There was anticipation there would be a vote on resuming the season tomorrow, but actually on my way in, I heard that vote will not happen. So again, hopefully we'll have that within the next near future. We're hearing that next week, the commissioner will at least speak to the public on what the plans possibly will be going forward. But Mike, that's great news for the Pelicans to have Zion Williamson and that team having a chance to be able to get into the playoffs.
It goes to show you what one guy can do.
Boy, I tell you.
And he's prime time. You want to watch him. But the crazy thing is they eating that up if they shove this into August. Come on, you can't compete with the NFL or in college football. As August gets a little farther, you're going to compete against those type outlets. That's not smart. Not smart at all. Now, I'm all for expanding the playoffs because I think the regular season's gone. I think it's over with. So if you're going to do it, expand it, and I get it. Zion is going to have people watching.
Yes.
And the Pelicans were a hot team.
Yes, they were.
When everything, sort of got disassembled at the end. And so, it's entertainment. And now you're starting to see sports get dictated. Now, a lot of people don't like to hear it. The stars of the world.
It's the truth.
The people's out there watching. That's what they want to see.
Well, especially if it's made for TV, which is what sports is going to be now. Made for television. You want to get this. You want to get the stars on TV, and of course, one of the rising stars is Zion Williamson. And you saw again just the ratings for the Pelicans when Zion came back, and of course, what we saw in the early season when he was out, how many nationally televised games they had for the New Orleans Pelicans at a time they weren't playing well. They were playing, as you mentioned, pretty well down the stretch.
They were playing very well down the stretch. Now, I do agree with the commissioner. Shove this back until December. Don't play those games in October and November. Down here, everybody's all caught up in football. You know, once you get past January 1st and 2nd, if the Saints are in the playoffs, great. LSU's in the mix, fantastic. But it's not every day. You know, now, when you're going up against football at the high school level, college level, pro level, man, NBA basketball, you taking a seat way in the back, so to speak. So I agree with him totally on that. Start the season, if it's mid-December and around Christmas time or whatever. I don't get pushing the start of the playoffs, though, in August when you know
Right.
the heavyweight champions of the world are waiting for you
Yes.
at the end of August.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But again, I do like what is being proposed as they go into a December start.
I
As
agree.
you mentioned,
I agree totally.
especially here. I've said this for as long as we've had an NBA basketball team. I love the NBA. I love basketball. I'm going to pay attention. But most people do not. Most people don't even realize or care that they're playing until you get into December. It was October, the end of October, and then it went recently again to October 15th, so they didn't have so many back-to-backs. But now they're going to start this thing in December, and I think that's where they need to stay. But I'm interested to see again how they're going to have this format for these playoffs, because this is going to be unprecedented.
Yeah, and I think too the season's too long.
Right.
And sort of, you gotta have to cut the games
Yes.
a little bit. I can understand pushing it into the May and June, where you're still playing
Yes.
and have it end in July when there's nothing going on television at
Right,
that point other
right.
than Major League Baseball. And there's still people that watch baseball, but sort of like you and I, we watch bits and pieces
Right.
of a game. We're not watching the whole 9 innings unless you had the game.
True.
So I agree with what they're trying to do. In the NBA, almost every team has a star. Now, not as big as Zion.
Right.
And that's a big reason why I can see why they want Williamson and the Pelicans
Yes.
playing
Yeah.
in August,
And
because
the-
they want people watching.
Yes, and you mentioned baseball. A lot of people don't start paying attention to baseball until after July 4th.
Or later.
Or later, right, because again, and the season is too long there. So again, this is all about TV and revenue, and we know again that's what's going on with
That
baseball right
drives
now.
the train.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Speaking of, before we kind of get into the Saints, what do you think we're going to look like going forward? Let's start with the fall, and when it comes to the NFL, it seems to me that the NFL is dead set on having fans in the stands.
You and I talked about this. I think the last show we did, and there was a lot of talk of, man, they got to push the draft back. And I told you, that is no way.
Right.
No way. They were going to figure out a way to make it work. And listen, I think they did a really good job. I know ratings for where we were and doing it on the radio were fantastic for that 3-day period for the draft. Same thing for television. And so I think the NFL train rolls no matter what. You're going to see the preseason games being played. You're going to see the regular season games being played. Here's what I can't tell you. Are there going to be people in the stands?
Right.
Now, that part, I think that they'll sort of let this play out a little bit before they made a definitive decision on it. But I think if they leave it up to the NFL, I think they play as usual. Now, again, something could happen to maybe derail that thought process.
Yes.
But I think that they're going to try to play it as usual. I had been told by some people who I trust pretty well that they thought the first couple of regular season games would be played with no fans in the stands. And so that may still be a part of it. But as far as the games, they're going to get played.
I had heard there's a contingency plan that may be moving the first 4 games to the end of the season if necessary. With everybody having the same bye weeks, I wonder logistically how that happens. I got a feeling they're going to go straight forward with the season.
I think the fear with that, Eric, is if you push it back and have those September games in January, what happens if you have a second outbreak and how that maneuvers. The other thing I think NFL officials have talked to me about and I brought up to them is what happens if on game week, on a Friday, your starting center who has tested negative all of a sudden tests positive, and he's in a room with everyone else.
Sure.
So he won't play. What happens to the other guys?
That's true.
What happens to your quarterback situation? You have to take that as is. I don't have, I don't have the answer to that, and I don't think they have the answer at this point to what will happen. And we could just speculate on that particular deal. I think that's the biggest fear, if it's college or pro, of what happens if I have one guy or 2 guys, same position, same room, all those guys together, and I don't have a 25-year-old coach. I may have a 60-year-old coach who's maybe more vulnerable.
Look at Alvin Gentry.
To the deal. And so Sean Payton. Same situation. So, Eric, that's for people. But I'll be honest with you. All I got to do is turn on social media, and I didn't know they had that many people that went to college for medical degrees or political science.
Right, exactly.
They all got,
everybody's an expert.
Everybody's an expert with it, but
Right.
it would just be speculation what happens. The contingency plan would make sense other than what happens
Right.
if.
Yes.
Then you tread your own ground. My thing is, if you can play it in September, play it. And you worry about what you got to worry about later on.
Yes. The pro game maybe could start without fans. It would be difficult for college, right? And if you would explain to the audience why.
Man, because that drives the train. You think about what happens on a Friday. Just go to Baton Rouge on a Friday morning and see everybody going to that LSU
Lined
game,
up.
tailgating camp, what it does to the community, the income. And Eric, we felt it over the last week with the cancellation of the Louisiana line camp. The biggest line camp in the world is in Thibodaux.
Yes.
4 days, an overnight stay, which that sort of killed it. You can't have 530 kids in a dormitory eating together, working out, that sort of thing.
Manning Passing Academy
Manning
as well.
Passing Academy follows it
Right.
because you look at a 9-day frame, 4 days of the line camp, the Wednesday you have off, from Thursday to Sunday is Manning. You got 1,200 kids from all over the country, all over the world. You got 350 counselors from ages 38 into their 70s. Biggest fear. 52 starting college quarterbacks came in last year.
Right.
What happens if one of them gets sick? Only have to one. Man, you got the cojones to call Nick Saban and say, hey, Nick, your quarterback, he's ill. We're sending him to the hospital, and get him tested, everything else. You want to break him that news?
Yes.
I mean, they always got geniuses of the world. Play them. Young guys don't get it. It only takes one.
Yes.
And all those guys are roomed together. All those guys go to meetings together. It was the only decision that could be made. And I really feel bad for the people that had so much time, so much effort, so much money had been put into getting these camps rolling. They just didn't flip the switch.
No, of course
and the
not.
line camp and the Manning camp comes up. They got a lot of people involved with this. And they got a couple of geniuses that called us, well, this was done because of political reasons. It's a political, you got to be kidding me. So I'm going to, I'm going to throw my money away for an election?
No.
Come on. But again, we live in that world.
Yes, we do.
On that particular deal. But it was the only decision that could be made to cancel both of them because they're overnight camps.
Right.
Because of the rules of not only the city of Thibodaux, but also state of Louisiana, NCAA. You got the medical people involved with here. They really had no choice. Coach Jenkins and Coach Don Rodriguez made the decision for the line camp, and then Archie followed suit a couple of days later.
Mike, what sport do you think it affects the most, the professional level or the collegiate level?
College.
In terms of not having kids to be able to work out in facilities.
College.
College? I would agree.
And it really hurts the young players. I talked to Coach O about it. One of the things he was telling me, okay, Mike, we got guys come in midterm, or we got a redshirt freshman. Okay, he hadn't seen any playing time. The spring was the time that we could have coached them, and he said, I'm going to steal your line you always say about giving it in the droppers. And that's what we do in the spring.
Right.
We're giving them in the dropper form. Because come summer, get ready for the tablespoon version. Now that's all gone. So you're going to hope that 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old will keep himself in shape.
Yes.
Now, I think they can come around quicker than an older person can.
Yes.
But if that's your livelihood, man, I ain't putting that on the line. I'm staying in shape. I'm going to do what I have to do.
Right.
For a college young man, that may not be that may not be top priority for
Might
them.
have a few distractions.
They got more than a few distractions at that point. So I think it hurts the college game, but I think it hurts every team.
Yes.
Not just one, every team with it, but especially a team that's got a lot of changes.
Right.
Like an LSU and what I call big position players, along like the offensive line or defensive line. LSU lost 5 of their top 6 offensive linemen. A brand new center.
Right.
And he's only played guard. He's not played center. And the backup to him has only played defensive line. So there's the big change there. In pro football, it's different. And that's part of, and I know we'll talk about it with the Saints, with Cesar Ruiz. When you drafted him, he, to me, is a prototypical center. He's had no OTAs, no rookie camp, none of that. Are you going to give Drew Brees another rookie center to break in? And it's not so much the exchange between the center and the quarterback, the other guys.
Yes.
And we saw it in training camp last year. And as soon as he got picked, you know, Zach and I, we were working to get along with Deuce. And Zach was like, remember when we saw it? McCoy, he's still holding the ball, and Armstead and Pete, they're like about 4 yards up the field. The timing of it's messed up.
Yes.
So that's going to be the question mark, even for a guy like Ruiz.
Yes.
What do you do with him this year? Do you put him at center?
Right.
And I think in 2021, that's going to be his spot. Is it going to be in 2020, or do you keep Eric McCoy at center this year and let Ruiz and Easton sort of battle it out for the guard spot this year?
I think it'll be interesting. We're going to take a little bit of an early break. When we come back, we're going to do a deep dive in the Saints. We'll talk about free agents that have been picked up recently. We'll also jump into the draft, get Mike's take on the draft as well. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Mike Detillier is with us. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll hear from our underwriters. We'll be right back.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Mike Detillier is our guest tonight. Mike, let's talk a little bit about some of the recent additions to the New Orleans Saints. And one that's happened within the last few days is guard tackle James Hurst from the Ravens. He's a guy that's had 6 years with the Ravens, 44 starts. Talk a bit about it. Tell the audience who this guy is.
Crazy thing about Hurst was he started 49 straight games at North Carolina at left tackle. He gets hurt in the Belk Bowl late in December that year. You know what? He got red flagged, and he went from a middle round pick to not getting drafted. Now, here was a guy, his strength was 49 straight games at left tackle.
Right.
From a freshman all the way through. He gets hurt, so they flagged him. He got a broken leg, you know, so he doesn't get picked.
Yes.
He's played left tackle all of his high school, college career. He's played left guard, left tackle, and he's played some right tackle with the Ravens. Now you got a guy that can swing both ways. And you won't have him for the first 4 games because he tested positive in the PED situation. But here you got a guy that's a swing tackle that has started, understands the position, and I think any guy that could play left and right tackle, he's worth his weight in gold.
Yes.
And you see how much Coach Payton has put the emphasis on versatility.
Yes.
Not, okay, if you can't start for me, then you got to be able to play more than one spot. And you look across the board, okay, Will Clapp can play center or guard, and he's played kind of like that jumbo tight end.
Right.
Cameron Tom has played both center and guard. Nick Easton, center, guard. You look at it all over the board, they've gotten some depth there at that position that can play it, and Hurst adds to that. And the fact that he has started for a team that's known for its run blocking, because that's what the Ravens want to beat you up. They want to beat you up in the trenches. To get a guy that late in the game, that's a really nice pickup. Now, again, you won't have him for 16, but if I can have him for 11, he's in.
Yep. Now, more suited to play left guard or left tackle? Where do you think his best attributes are?
I thought he played best at left guard, but he could play at left tackle.
Yes, I agree with you.
I think he's more of a left. Now, he has played on the right side.
But he's a left side guy, right?
But he's a left side guy. And if you watched him with the Ravens a lot of times when he was playing on the right, playing right tackle, had that tight end right alongside of him.
Right. But again, it gives them exactly what they need now. What they were missing was that swing guy that can play guard or tackle, and especially on the left side where they've had so many injuries between Pete and Armstead, right?
And so most offensive line coaches will tell you this. I'm not crazy about, because Teron Armstead's one of the best left tackles in pro football, but he's been hurt virtually every year he misses time. So your thought process is, let's move Pete, because he's the best option. Let's move him to left tackle. Then we got to put somebody else at left guard. Now it gives you a little bit of thinking that I can keep Pete at left guard and I can put Hurst at left tackle.
Yes.
So at least it's part of the consideration. And even if you do move Pete to left tackle, Hurst could play left guard.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of an interchangeable situation, but I think most line coaches, man, let me just have one change. Let me worry about the one spot.
Exactly.
But then I'm worried about if I make two changes, the continuity.
Right.
Because I think people don't get it, how difficult it is. 5 guys working as one. That center, which has now become, to me, other than quarterback, the hardest position to play because of where the pressure's coming from today. And doing a lot of shows. I wrote this article 3 years ago. Yeah, I go to all these camps, and they would say, okay, tweet. Tackles go here, guard centers go here, receivers, tight ends, and you got to move out the way. I mean, it looks like about 40 of them running in that direction. Running backs here, defensive tackles here, defensive ends. Eric, I could get in front of them and would never get touched. There's maybe 5.
Right.
Okay, in a 500 deal camp. My thing is, guess what? That's going to trickle down.
Yes.
So think about draft time. How many defensive ends got picked in the first round? 2. Chase Young, and if you want to say Caleb Vaughn is a defensive end, then put him in there.
Right.
You know how many defensive ends got picked? 17 in a 7-round draft.
Right.
17 defensive ends. For 2020, name me the top pass rushing defensive end in the SEC.
For 2020?
If you got to hesitate, it goes to show you there is none. In my top 22 players for the 2021 draft, 1 defensive end, Gregory Russo from Miami of Florida.
And why is that with a premium on pass rushers?
Well, because here's the deal. Years ago, if you had a 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" guy, he's playing outside linebacker, defensive end. You know they want to play there? Oh no, sir, I don't want to play defense. I'm playing wide receiver or tight end. You ask them, man, you see these big, tall, good-looking athletes, and what do you play on defense? Oh no, sir, I don't play on defense. I'm a receiver. I'm a tight end. They're all going because 7-on-7. Without being interrupted, you can play that in the South and on the Pacific Coast 9-10 months out the year. Defensive end's a different story. And a lot of those guys that are measured to be a defensive end, you know what they're doing? They're playing basketball. So we're seeing the change here. It's going to hit in the NFL.
Right.
I'm just telling you, I talked to a gentleman, he's 33 years old. He's been playing in the league. He came out early for the draft, so he's been playing his 12 years. And he's like, Mike, I'm finally starting to think about retirement. I said, if I was you, I wouldn't. He said, why? I said, ain't nobody better than to beat you out. You might not be a starter. You can play another 3 or 4 years in this league. Look what's coming out of the NFL. He said, well, what you mean? So I showed him the numbers. He's like, I might consider that now. And if I was him, I would consider it. You can't make that kind of money in the regular world. So, Eric, I think we're starting to see the effects of 7-on-7, what it's doing defensively, and the pressure now coming up the middle, and I've had this talk even with Coach O. Everybody wants to recruit the tackles. Well, you better have center and guards that can play, because you know what? They got a ton of those interior players.
Yes.
And so if I'm going to delay blitz you, what's the easiest way to get to the quarterback? Straight line.
Right.
My linebacker and my safety's coming
absolutely.
right up the middle to blitz you. And, and talking, I do shows with 5, 6 former NFL quarterbacks every week. First thing they tell you is, I hate that pressure up the middle. It takes away your ability to step up in the pocket and throw. Right. They blow up your launch pad. So Sean Payton almost is a step ahead of everybody else. He's figured it out that now, not only for today, but for tomorrow and 2022 and 23 and 24, guess what? All those pass rushers are going to get a little older, and they're not coming into the league with all those guys like we've seen in years past. But you get a better group of quarterbacks and receivers than you ever have before.
And you see it.
You see
it in the draft, no doubt. Speaking of wide receiver, running back, and a guy that can return kicks, what are your thoughts on the signing of Ty Montgomery?
Ty's a guy I remember in high school. He's a Texas kid. Was a running back there. Played a little receiver, but as soon as he went to Stanford, David Shaw had a backlog of running backs. Ty, you playing receiver, and he returned kicks.
Yes.
He was a good return man. He had a little health issue, and so that was also part of the reason why he went to receiver. And so he gets picked in the 3rd round by the Packers as a receiver. Well, Mike gets hit with some injuries at running back. Hey, Ty, you're playing running back. He's the perfect fit for this offense.
I agree.
Because of the fact he can save you a roster spot. And, when you're going to cut down now to that 55-man roster today, you're looking for some versatility. Here's a guy that can play running back, has done it, has played receiver, and if something physically happened to Deontay Harris, he can return kicks.
Right.
So you get a 3-for-1 guy here. Is he a superstar player? No, but he's a good utility player. And the way Sean has used offensive players, he's done a fantastic job of finding the right fit guy for that offense. Ty Montgomery is a perfect fit for the Saints offense as a backup running back, backup receiver, backup return man. And in certain spots, you're going to use him. And here's my thing, because I've had a couple of different people tell me, that's why they didn't pick a receiver. He's only going to be the 5th or 6th option. I was like, okay, at the end of the year, what was the biggest need for this team on offense? Receiver. Okay, what happens today if something happens to Emmanuel Sanders? Where are you?
Right.
So you can take that 5th and 6th option.
Right.
That's where it's at. It's torn up. It's not good anymore.
Yes.
You're going to Traquan Smith, it's a huge year for him offensively because of the fact that it's a part in time for him. He's in year 3. Okay, he's not a rookie anymore. And don't give me this stuff about it takes 3 years.
Not in today's NFL.
Not in today's NFL, not with the way they're coming out with receivers, because they have all that experience now in college and in high school of the pitch and catch game. It's make or break. It's make or break for him. You have potential guys. Okay, little Jordan Humphrey, potential. Emmanuel Butler, hopefully he can take what he did in practice and flip it.
Especially with a year under his belt now.
With a year under it, and to see how well he handles that. But come on, everything's clean today.
Yes.
Everything's clean. You had one injury with Noah Spence. But if you have, because the worst thing about it is if you have an injury, I hate to say it, it happens at the same spot. You don't lose one, you lose two guys.
It's like an epidemic.
And so it's a difficult spot. And to just throw it out there, oh, he's the 5th or 6th option. Oh, yeah, today he is. But what about in September?
Right.
And if something happens to 2 of your receivers, or what happens to your tight end, or what happens if Kamara gets hurt?
Right.
Now where are you sitting at with all this?
That's why I like Montgomery. He can do,
I agree with you.
He can do what Kamara can do, maybe not as well, but he can do it. He's a guy that could be your 4th receiver if you need him to be.
He's a thickly built receiver with some run after catch skills.
And then you mentioned about Deontay Harris. He can also return kicks for you.
That was the guy that I think really could have been helped a lot on offense with the OTAs and the practice sessions, because I think Sean wants to have him touch the ball more
Yeah.
on offense. And if you watch what Seattle has done with Tyler Lockett, who's a similarly built player,
Yes.
I think that's what Sean would like Deontay Harris to do, to be more of a guy that if it's the jet sweep as a runner, catch the wide receiver screen, how that sort of thing works out. And that's not having the spring and the early summer for him hurt him.
I would agree. We heard that Peyton had plans for Harris this year, and we'll see how that
I
kind of works out.
I think he's still got the plans.
Oh,
still.
yeah. You mentioned Noah Spence. He got injured, torn ACL, working out for the season. He was put on the reserve list that, again, the Saints don't have to pay him. The Saints don't have to deal with the medical because of the byproduct of this pandemic. Now he, like any other player that would get injured now, that's not at the facility. Again, they're kind of out of luck now. It's going to be interesting to see again how this kind of plays out. You and I were talking in the break. I'm surprised the Players Association did not foresee this to say, hey, just because a guy is working out, he's not at the facility, with the facility shut down, he's still part of the team. He's getting ready for the season. Noah Spence was a guy that maybe could have made the roster, but again, now he's in a situation where he's pretty much on his own.
Jesse James put his life on the line every time he jumped that train to rob it. The lawyers got the best of the NFLPA. They just put the suit and the tie on and got in there. And come on, it favored them. And they didn't see that maybe something like this of a delay could affect a player. And again, it's going to be up to the Saints on how they do it. Noah Spence would have had a difficult time making this football team. Listen, this team didn't go out and get Margus Hunt and Anthony Chickillo because they felt Noah Spence is the answer. Come on, they brought him here to add depth at defensive end. And it's hard to get those guys in September and October when everybody's after them. If you remember, the same day they picked up Jackrabbit, Janoris Jenkins, they also put a waiver claim in for Terrell Suggs.
Yes.
But Kansas City picked him up ahead of the Saints. So you're always looking for, to me, pass rush defensive ends, cover corners. You never have enough on your football team. I can find me a receiver. I can find me a running back.
Yes.
Go find me that pass rusher. Go find me that guy that can cover in the secondary. How fortunate this team was late in the process to pick up a starting corner in Janoris Jenkins and get a guy like DJ Swearinger, who has played both free and strong. He's played in nickel dime coverage, played on special teams. To get that experience to come back for this year, I think is a big plus. But I think the key defensively, and I know we talked about this, I think maybe the first time in March, and we brought it up again in April, it's going to be the health of the defensive line. To lose Sheldon Rankins and Marcus Davenport in 1 week really hurt your football team. And if you look back, this team has sort of been snake bit there. Back-to-back years with Davenport with injuries. Back-to-back year with Sheldon Rankins injury. And flip it, even before then, all of a sudden the light came on for Nick Fairley and then the heart issue. Forcing him to retire. So, man, it kind of almost buzzes luck a little bit of having those injuries up front where it's so hard to replace that guy. So that's why it was important you re-sign David Onyemata, because now with him and Malcolm Brown, hopefully with Rankins, he can stay healthy, and the development of Shai Tuttle. Deontay was the guy I would have liked to have watched in the spring. The guy I'd like to have watched in the spring defensively, Granderson, because he missed all of that. Here was a guy would have been probably a middle round pick had he not had off the field issues. The Saints sort of trusted that, hey, listen, he's got to serve some time, but we'll get him and we'll try to develop him. He just didn't make the team. He made the 53-man roster. He came on and then he was on the field.
And he showed flashes during the season.
And he's another guy, tall, long, drink of water type player that really would have been aided with some time and some work out there, because he didn't get that summer work last year.
And he's not getting it this year.
And he's not going to get it this year until training camp starts.
You mentioned Hunt. You mentioned Chickillo. Tell us a little bit about those two guys.
Man, Hunt's a great athlete. I don't know about a player. He's been a backup guy. He has started in this league, but he's played both defensive end, defensive tackle. been a good special teams player. He's almost too tall. And, you don't like to say it, but, I can kind of get in his knees
Yes.
and his legs a little bit and kind of get him down. But, boy, he's a 6'7.5" guy. You throw those arms up, he can get a lot of block passes. What he's done really well, too, special teams. Get his hands up in the air to maybe block a kick. So you bring him in. He's got experience. He's played both positions. Certainly helps. Anthony Chickalo, I remember him coming out of high school. He was a 5-star recruit. His dad and his grandfather both went to Miami in Florida. I knew where he was going.
Right.
Great athlete. He never could flip it. Never could flip the switch and turning into that athletic ability into being a productive pro player, where he was really good special teams for the Steelers. But they gave him every opportunity as a 3-4 outside linebacker. But in this defense, he's playing defensive end.
How about the signing of Jameis Winston?
For me, Jameis is a guy that I think Sean has always liked. You see the talent in him. Big, strong arm guy. Can put the football anywhere out on the field. And you sometimes see the good and the bad and the great and the ugly all in one quarter with Jameis. I was talking to Gay Culverhouse as soon as they made the signing. And Gay, her dad owned the Buccaneers. She was the president of the Buccaneers. And she's not sort of outspoken. She is outspoken. She wouldn't mind me saying it. But, at her age, her deal is I don't care what what people think about me. And her deal is, who he reminds me of? Vinny Testaverde. She said, we had Vinny here in Tampa. And she said, you could compare a little bit Vinny in college career leading into the pros similar to Jameis.
Yes.
And she said, one thing you can compare, Vinny Testaverde left here and he started for 6 other teams in the NFL. Look at his touchdown to interception ratio, almost identical. No matter where he went, you saw the good and the bad with Vinny. You starting for 6 different teams after the Bucks kind of cut you loose.
Right.
Goes to tell you got a little bit of talent.
Sure.
And I think Sean can help him, along with Drew, help him in some ways. But Eric, I think, God gifted him with that arm.
Oh, yeah.
And that ability to sling it. And you can work on some things, and it's like, okay, you're going to college and you're taking calculus. And you need a tutor.
Right.
And you're a C-D student.
Yeah, well, you took calculus. I'm staying away from it.
I can maybe get you to be a B- student. I'll never get you to be the A. There is something about, because he's done it for so long, it's hard to break that habit.
Decision making is his biggest problem.
And also, too, you trust that you can get the ball somewhere.
Right. You got the arm.
Because I got the arm. Okay, Drew Brees didn't grow up with that. He had to do it a different way. Peyton Manning had to do it a different way. Tom Brady had to do it a different way. It's different. When you that gifted to throw the football the way he can throw it, you have certain habits that's difficult to break. And I think you can get better.
Right.
It'll be interesting of how the dynamics of that plays out. Not for 2020 if Drew stays healthy. 2021. Because I think we're watching the last year of Drew. And does Jameis say, you know what? I saw Taysom Hill. I think I can take him.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people again are looking at Winston and Taysom and saying, Winston turns it around in terms of decision making. He could be the next starting quarterback.
Well,
of the Saints.
here's my deal. We've heard it for 3 years, right? And I think Taysom's a terrific guy, and I think a really great football player. I can't tell you from a passing standpoint. We see him in practice. He's hot and he's cold. Okay. Now Sean's seen him a lot more than any of us have.
Yes.
But he has said this for the last 2.5, 3 years. He's my next starting quarterback. Last year when Drew went down, who did he go to?
Went to Teddy Bridgewater.
If something happens in game 2 this year,
he's going to Jameis Winston.
Okay, so you got your answer there. He has started games. He's walked down that football aisle before in the pro ranks that Taysom has never done yet. And I'm interested to see, not so much preseason because that's the biggest mirage in the world,
of course,
of preseason, but if you have to play them, the first couple games, teams will sort of take a look and then they sort of figure you out. It doesn't take long for them to figure out. the greatest example, Ryan Leaf. First couple games in the NFL, he was unbelievable. He was better than Manning. And then what happened? He derailed the train.
Yes.
Afterwards, they figured out what he could do real quickly, and then he came apart at the seams, and Peyton's one of the all-time greats. And he still holds the record because he was teasing Joe Burrow about, man, why don't you throw more in the sand and break my record? I've been having that one for way too long.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's grab a couple calls, and I want to get back to what your thoughts on the Saints draft was. Let's go to Larry and Kenner. Larry, welcome. Hey, Larry. Welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hey, Eric. Love your show, buddy.
Thank you, Larry.
Hey, Mike Detillier. I love you, my brother. Larry,
Thank you, brother.
that truck. Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Hey, just wanted to, y'all answer one of my questions. I wanted to see who y'all thought would be the backup quarterback to Drew, but y'all just answered that question. But, Mike, I'm going to miss you, my brother, at the training camp because I know we ain't going to have it, but I guess I'll probably see you during game days and all, but I'm going to miss y'all, man.
Well, listen,
Go
we
Saints,
all.
and I'm picking the Saints to go 12-4 this
Hey,
year, Mike. What
same
you
as
think
me.
about that?
Same as me. I picked them 12-4 also. Listen, we miss everybody that we would see at all these camps and all, and the fans were there. And hopefully, you know, when it all comes back, we can mingle with everybody and do the pregame. We, you know, Bobby and I, we have a good time with it outside of the Superdome, so on game day. So hopefully all that'll come back.
Hopefully it will. Greg is in Houma. Hey, Greg, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hey, guys, a question about, I don't know if there's any type of fines or legalities that NFL puts in place to not let, you know, Drew Brees call Michael Thomas and start throwing to him, or Tom Brady throwing to other receivers. I mean, is there anything that the NFL opposes to, and do you think it's happening now? I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you. Guys working out like they normally do. We go to San Diego, work with Brees. We saw recently Tom Brady's already working out with his receivers.
Working with Gronk.
Right.
Now, he made that phone call. Hey, come to Tampa.
Right.
You know, Gronk was wrestling.
Yes.
You know, I flip on a Friday night and I see he wins the 24/7 championship. Next thing you know, he's signing with he got traded to the Buccaneers. So do it at your own deal. You know, and I think a lot of that's going on that you may not know about.
Yes, I would agree.
I think a lot of that has going on behind the scenes with it. And listen, man, I want to get on Drew Brees' good side. Why wouldn't I go work with him
you
somewhere?
Would work with
you
him,
tell me where you want me to meet you.
Exactly.
I'll wear the mask. I'll do whatever you want.
Sure.
Let me work out with you this off season. Let me work out with you.
Toby is in Gretna. Toby, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Toby.
Hey, Joe. Yeah, Mike, would you have kept the draft choices to add younger depth, or you like what the Saints did? Thank you.
Great segue.
That's a good question. I like what they did. And I think Sean looked at it and everything is hindsight 2020 is that who knows what training camp will look like. Now, I think it'll look similar to what we've seen in past years. I think the toughest thing is for a young player to come in here and make the roster because, you know, it's not that they got too much talent. Man, I hear that all. Oh, too much. We don't need to bring that guy in. We got too much. There's never too much talent. Last year, you went to the NFC Championship game. You had 18 new players on your roster.
Yeah.
18 of 53. So don't tell me you got too much talent at a particular spot. I do think, though, it's this year, who I really feel for is the Panthers. New coach, new quarterback.
We'll see.
All their defensive line, all their defensive picks, every one of them on defense. You got a new regime. You're trying to build the locker room.
Right.
Sean has the core players back from a year ago. You got them back. You got Drew Brees back. Most of your unsigned free agents you were worried about re-signed. Now, Von Bell went to Cincinnati, but you bring in Malcolm Jenkins, who knows the system also. You have a lot of pieces in place, and I think he felt for this run, I think there are some veteran players that can help in filling those spots. And I don't need 7 or 8 draft choices.
Yes.
And I think, too, is he has a lot of confidence in his scouting department that undrafted free agent. I did an article for Sports Illustrated last week on it. Look at it. 5 undrafted free agents made this roster in 2019. Now, you'd have never thought of that going in, but I think he's got a lot of faith that a couple of those guys can make it along with the draft choices and help them out.
Talk about Zach Bond.
I saw a lot of Zach play. he's a guy that when you watch Wisconsin, they used him a lot as a rush guy. He was a pass rush outside linebacker. Occasionally, he would drop back into the coverage part, or they had him as a rover guy. He would sort of in that little area. But his real strength is his ability to get up the field, rush the quarterback. He's going to need some work in the coverage part of the game. He's a former quarterback in transition, so to speak, at linebacker. He got hurt early in his career, redshirted, hurt his foot, and he's played the last 2 years. But last year you saw, man, he can get after it. His range is very good. Eventually he's going to be your starting strong side linebacker on this defense.
How about Adam Troutman?
Adam Troutman was my number 2 rated tight end in this draft class, a big, tall guy. And you think about, how could you miss with him, you know, coming out of high school? But he grew a little bit later. He was a former quarterback, again, transition change. And, you know, his former coaches all talk about him. You can't outwork him. He will work himself to a frenzy. The one thing I liked about him was he went to the Senior Bowl. The first day, he was a little nervous, like anybody would be. Come on, you
played at Dayton,
and you have now the eyes of the NFL world watching you. By day 2, he was fine. But he's not just a pass receiver. He's a pretty doggone good blocker. You know, he's a physical guy. He gives you a big presence in the middle part of the field, can run the seam, and also I think they'll use him a lot in like what I call basketball plays. Get to the line, just turn around, bam. Okay, you're a 6'5" tight end, got a 5'10", 5'11" guy around me, throw the ball in the right spot, I'm gonna catch it. Just like a basketball player.
About a minute left, Tommy Stevens.
He's a project player. I didn't know anything about, he had played safety. He comes to the Manning camp. I sat down to do the interview with him. Told me, you know, I didn't play quarterback until my junior year of high school. You know, I was a defensive back. And then he was begging the coaches to play him at wide receiver and at tight end and running back, and he did a little bit of it. We went to state. They had high hopes for him, just inaccurate as a quarterback. They see him, Taysom Hill 2.0.
Yes, I would agree. Mike, as always, thanks so much for
joining us on
the program. Always appreciate having you. As always, again, we love having Mike Detillier here on the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLE at 10 p.m. Also, you can catch us statewide, Pelican Sports Television. That's 9 o'clock every Friday night. We post this show on my social media platforms, as well as you can go to WLAE-TV YouTube page at your leisure and check out the show as well. Catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2 and the iHeart Radio app. That is weekdays noon to 2. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. All the previous episodes of this program can also be seen at ericasher.com. Also want to thank our great underwriters, also Mike Detillier for joining us tonight, and also the WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Donson, Naila Jones, Alex Chacon, Tommy Fairley, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for tuning in. Well, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Make sure you check Mike Detillier out on Sports Illustrated, WWL Radio. And as always, thanks so much for watching.